We now move on to Elizabeth's religious settlement of 1559. This compromise was aimed at reuniting the Catholics of England and the Protestants of England, and hoping that they would both accept the compromise. The settlement is formed of two acts that were passed by Parliament, the Act of Supremacy and the Act of Uniformity, which established Elizabeth's government and established a new doctrine for a Church of England. England became a Protestant country once again. This was Elizabeth's effort to find a middle way and a compromise, and it did reflect much of her own personal but religious belief. To look at the minutiae of the settlement, we need to return to the four areas we talked about in an earlier video. Who would be the head of the church and the role of the bishops? Decoration within the church and the use of music. The role the Bible played and the language the Bible was written in, and also the role of the clergy and their qualifications. The settlement made Elizabeth, not the Pope, the head of the church, although she gave herself a new title as Supreme Governor of the church. All judges, all MPs, all government officials were forced to take an oath accepting Elizabeth's titles, and the bishops would be the people who would run the church day to day. Many of the Catholic bishops who had been powerful under Mary resigned rather than take this oath of allegiance to Elizabeth. Inside church, singing of hymns could continue, and ornaments and decorations continued to be allowed. By making so few changes, Elizabeth was able to win many people over. However, the Puritans felt that the new churches looked far too Catholic. The Bible and church services had to be in English, and every church had to have a Bible that was written in English. A new Protestant prayer book was to be used in each church, and bread and wine would continue to be offered as Holy Communion, but the exact reasons behind why they were being used were left a little vague. The lack of a Latin Mass was unacceptable to many Catholics. However, many played the part and went to church on Sundays, but then secretly at home took their Latin Mass. Elizabeth's government did little to stop this, as long as the Catholics appeared loyal. All members of the clergy had to take an oath recognising Elizabeth's title as Supreme Governor and agreeing to use the new prayer book. As well as this, the clergy had to wear what's called a surplice, rather than the plain black gowns the Puritans preferred. A significant change was that the clergy were now allowed to get married if they so wished. Elizabeth and her government worked hard to ensure that their new ideas won support across the country. She encouraged the production of medallions and engravings, showing her as almost the saviour of Protestantism. These images became very popular with the everyday working folk. Anyone who refused to go to church was referred to as a recusant, and they had to pay a fine of 1 shilling per week. This was an incredibly large amount for poor people. However, wealthy Catholics could easily afford to pay this fine. Elizabeth also added the holiday of Accession Day to the calendar of church festivals, so the day of feasting and having fun would be associated with the Queen.